Welcome in. Movie recap. In this video, action movie John Wick 2. Turn on subtitles, and let's get started. It begins with John Wick getting involved in a chase to recover a stolen Ford Mustang from Abraham Tarasov. The brother of the late Viggo Tarasov, on the other hand, immediately alerts his men to be ready to confront John, one of his henchmen who seems very sure of himself. John says he can handle it on his own, so Abraham asks if they gave everything up for a car. Tarasov then tells him it's not just a car, it's John Wick's car. Then he suggests the boss give John the car to just the boss and then describe the type. The guy they're actually dealing with now saying John Wick killed his nephew, his brother, and a dozen of his men in his car. Then his henchman Gru suggests they take this John. When he's told John Wick is the stick, focus on the guy and he'll kill 3 men with a pencil, Tarasov making it very clear they don't. They talk about the ordinary killer here. They talk about John Wick and that the word ordinary is not for that man, who tells his men that John is highly respected in the world of crime because of his perseverance and ingenuity. On the other hand, John discovered the whereabouts of his Ford Mustang and rushed to Tarasov's place and paralyzed all of Tarasov's men, where he goes on a violent rampage and ends up damaging it. Favorite car. John saved Tarasov's life as it is, vowing never to interfere in John's life again. John accepts the peace treaty and returns home, then returns all the things that remind him of his old life as a hitman who intends to return to life as an ordinary, widowed man after the death of his wife. A few days later, Aurelio came to his house and asked him to fix his car, a Ford Mustang, and he checks out the car and says it will take some time to fix the thing. The evening, Kimura crime boss Santino D'Antonio John is visiting. He asks John to return to his old life and offers him a job, and Santino reminds John that he was the one who helped John complete his impossible mission that allowed John to retire and marry Helen. In return, John swears an unbreakable pledge sign symbolized by the oath medal that Santino is holding, which makes Santino assigned to demand favors from John. The Santino family is a tyrannical mafia family because Santino's father is a big deal. He deals in the world of crime. He is a high-ranking member of a council of 12 high-ranking crime bosses who oversee all continental hotels worldwide. Despite these factors, John has not moved and says he has now decided to move on from his old life for good and declines the offer definitely. However, the refusal does not sit well with Santino, and he launches an attack to destroy John's house with a grenade launcher. John somehow manages to survive the attack and has no place to live. John goes to the Continental Hotel in New York City. With his dog John, he seeks help and advice from Winston, who reminds him that if he refuses the mark, he will be breaking 2 unbreakable rules of the underworld: no killing on the continent. Reasons and honors each sign. John realizes he has no other choice, so he reluctantly acquiesces in his commitment and goes to see Santino. Santino wastes no time in business talks right away and asks John to kill his sister. Gianna Santino is jealous of his sister because she has to be at a high table where he is considered her father. Santino says she is more deserving of the position after her father than Santino. Santino wants her dead because he wants a seat at the high table. John agrees to the task and assigns Santino his bodyguard Eris to keep an eye on John and to see how he performs the task. John goes to the storage site and takes some. He takes his belongings and goes to Rome, staying at the Rome branch of the Continental Hotel, and is greeted warmly by Jules, who is a manager at the hotel. Then goes to visit a tailor's shop dedicated to killers who design bulletproof clothing to support the work of criminals. Underworld. Now John needs to know where Gianna is, so he goes to visit a guy to get a blueprint of her whereabouts to make it easier for himself to discover the different entrances in and out of where she is. John needs some weapons, so it turns out he goes to an ordinary gun shop. The owner of the shop is familiar with the legend John Wick and knows what kind of weapons are suitable for him to carry out his mission. At night, John Coronation sneaks up on Gianna to her seat at the high table and confronts her in the dressing room. In a confrontation with some death, Gianna chooses to take her own life by slitting her wrists. While Gianna was dying, John shot her in the head to achieve the goal. John completed his mission and left the place when he saw Gianna's bodyguard named Cashin. John and immediately realized that John was sent there to kill Gianna. Cashin and immediately attacks him and engages them. In a shootout, John is able to get away from Cashin and his henchmen, and then flee into the catacombs, where he is crossed by Ares, who has been hired by Lady Santino to watch over Gonch with his henchmen who intend to raise limbs with murder John after killing most of his followers again. By Cashin, he is once again involved in a fierce shootout with Cashin and his men, who bring them into the lobby area of the Continental Hotel, which, like the New York Continental, forbids any business on its land. John and Cashin stop fighting to respect the hotel's rules. The two go to a bar and share this when John tells Cashin the reason behind Gianna's assassination. Despite knowing Santino is behind Gianna's death, Cashin still says he will kill John, yet promises John his quick death as a professional respect when he gets to his room. A call from Santino tells John he understands. If John is upset and says he realizes what he just did to him might feel like a Santino character, then goes on to say what kind of man he'd be if he didn't avenge his sister for this. When John stops being angry, the next day John prepares to check out the Continental Hotel in Chrome and head back to New York City, and Santino on the other hand opens a $7 million to kill John Wick under the guise of saving his sister. The contract is distributed to everyone, many of whom are lured into all over the world the very high value of the contract, where Santino meets Winston and takes a blood oath from Santino which shows that John has fulfilled his commitment and is no longer bound by fidelity with Santino, and this happens when there is no need to do, because John will be killed when he comes to New York, and then goes Winston to warn Santino that he made a huge mistake in betraying John and that he wasn't the right guy messing with Winston. Tells Santino that he stabbed Evil in the back and forced him into the life he just let go of, and told him that John was now free of the mark and that he would return for revenge. Santino was repeatedly warned and told he was now heading towards the consequences of corrupting John Wick, but he hadn't done it yet. The warning seems to have affected him, and he seems certain that John will not be able to approach him, nor will he be able to kill him. He is constantly attacked while walking the streets of New York. John himself is a high profile, so trying to kill him doesn't turn into a walk in the park for the other killers. He also has some trouble dealing with axes, but manages to shoot him in the head. He is attacked in a subway station, but manages to kill the killer with a pencil as he continues down the subway, where he encounters Cashin. They again engage in a gunfight with silencers in the crowd to prevent causing chaos, and then get into a physical fight after engaging in murderous ferocity. John manages to stab his aorta with a knife, leaving his fate uncertain. John gets himself seriously injured and finds himself in need of help. He sees a beggar and asks him for help to give him a piece of gold. The beggar helps him outside. To get himself out of Tarragon, he still needs help, so he goes to an undercover crime boss known as the Bow King, a mullet king man who treats John's injuries. Jonathan asks the Bow King to help him find Santino's location, telling him to use his secret network to find out where Santino is. And he has asked for more of his weapons. And now the King of the Mullet asks John why he should help him in the first place, and John makes a valid point by saying that if Santino can get a seat at the high table, he'll be the King of the Mullet. He is removed from his office and will lose his resources. John tells him that if this happens, the Bow King will not be able to control his secret networks, and that's when the Bow King realizes that John has made valid points and starts to think about it. And the Bow King is intrigued. John intends to kill a member of the high table, and the Bow King decides to help him and gives him a gun with only 7 bullets, one of a million knots, and directs John to an art museum where Santino is holding John in trouble now. The situation: after obtaining a gun with only 7 bullets and information on Santino's whereabouts, John goes straight to the museum and begins killing Santino's men while John gives chase. And he starts slaughtering Santino's men, gaunches Santino all over the museum as he kills his remaining henchmen. But however lucky Santino is as the silent security officer gets there and Santino manages to escape from there. John makes quick work of Santino's other henchmen and kills them all, and becomes face to face with Ari and engage in a fistfight. The two engage in a fierce fight and end up killing the woman. As the two fight, Santino manages to escape to the continent where he intends to stay in sanctuary. If you remember, there is a rule that awakening can happen inside Santino Continental. He will surely be safe inside the continent and will not reach. John gets there and kills him as long as he stays there. John finally reaches the Continental Continent after a while. Asks Sharon and Santino. John has been through a lot the past few days, and he is covered in blood and cuts, but he still looks resolute, and he is committed to getting things done the way he wants to. Yet he doesn't want anyone to. He is on the other end of John's anger, so he tells him where Santino is in Africa. Winston John goes there when he watches John go towards them. John doesn't act so rude by killing Santino on the continent. If he does, he'll have to face the consequences on the other side. Santino looks really relaxed. The guy is enjoying his meal. And he sure is. As much as John wanted to kill him, he still wouldn't kill him in the Continental Hall. He says enough, and without thinking he completely ignores Winston's warnings and kills Santino. After kills John, and Santino gets out of there once and goes to his old house and remembers the time he had with his late wife while staying at the house, and he remembers a lot. Fond memories of the sweet time he spent there with his loving wife. In the following days, Sharon comes to John and takes him to meet Winston since John broke the continent's rules while facing the consequences, and Stan tells him that according to the High Table, John's power of attorney contract has doubled in value and is being offered universally as another consequence of the murder Santino on continental Earth. Winston announces that John excommunication tutor identifies all his access and privileges to underworld resources, telling him that everyone around him is now a killer ready to kill John. But Winston delays announcing John's X-connection by 1 hour to give him a good head start and provide him with a sign to use in. The future then steps forward to tell Winston to tell them whoever comes will kill them all. Winston says she will, of course, after John leaves with his dog Winston, calling John's eviction code to take effect in 1 hour as the contract activates and cell phones start buzzing around him. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon for new movie clips. See you in the next video.